Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to do a beer that should be really quite interesting. This is another one of the small partiers that we had here in Sweden through Systembolaget on the 7th of September 2018. And it involves two breweries who you've seen me review a number of things from. So this beer is half Swedish and then kind of half Danish, half American in some sort of weird fashion. So for this one we're going to return to Evil Twin Brewing, who are the Danish-American kind of side of things, and this is a collaboration beer that they did with Poppels Bryggeri from Jonserad just outside of Gothenburg here in Sweden. So this one is called the Swedish Fika Biscotti Break. It's a 12% imperial stout brewed with vanilla, cocoa nibs, coffee, hazelnuts, and also arak and badere. So arak is a kind of spirit drink from rice and molasses that the Swedes like to use with pastries and chocolates and things like that, and badere is a special type of biscuit that you get in Gothenburg actually. So this one should be a very, very interesting beer. This is the first time I've actually tried anything from the Biscotti Break range that the Evil Twin do, but there's a number of different beers in that range, so hopefully I can try a few of the others for you in the fairly near future. I think the main one is the Imperial Biscotti Break actually, which uses Italian biscuits if I'm remembering correctly, but it should be a very interesting beer. I'm looking forward to trying it, and as always I hope you guys enjoy my take on this one. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the breweries involved here. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done, both from Evil Twin and from Poppels Bryggeri. No doubt you will see more added from both in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you and all the Danish and American beers that I've reviewed for you. I guess this beer will appear in all three of those lists because it's a whole cocktail of different things. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to Evil Twin then, since these guys I guess are the home brewery if you like. So Evil Twin Brewing are a Danish gypsy brewery that was founded by Jeppe Jarnik Bjergso, who is of course the twin brother of Mikkel Bjergso, the big boss over at Mikkeller. The company was founded back in 2010, and it was largely inspired by the lack of craft beer that was available in Denmark at the time. So Jeppe began homebrewing in the same beer group that gave birth to Mikkeller and of course Toul a bit later on as well, and he went on to found his own beer shop called Ølbutikken in Copenhagen, which is still in the city today. But he also started an import business that was attached to the shop, and he used this to import American beers into Denmark. So he was quite an influential guy when it came to the birth of the craft beer scene in Copenhagen. But Jeppe actually agreed an import deal later on with 12% imports, and he actually decided after that he and his wife would move out to America. So he went over and set up the company offices in Brooklyn in New York, and the beer now is brewed at a variety of host breweries. So they brew a lot of it in Denmark still, I think. There's some of it is brewed down at the Prof Brouwerij in Locriste Hefte in Ghent in Belgium, and they brew a number of their beers in various places in New England. I think quite a lot of it is brewed in Connecticut at 2 Cents Brewing if I'm remembering correctly, and they're brewing quite a few things down in the Carolinas as well. You know, Appalachia seems to have a really sort of thriving craft beer scene down there as well. But Evil Twin, you know, I think they've been getting a little bit more prolific lately. I've been seeing a lot more different things released from them, but when it comes to Danish craft beer, you know, Evil Twin are one of the ones that you definitely want to check out. I've had some great Imperial IPAs and double IPAs from them, and I've also had some really interesting Imperial Stouts as well. So one of the breweries, like I say, that you definitely want to check out. But that's all you really need to know about them. If you want to learn a little bit more, check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram as well, and keep up to date with all the different things that are going on there. So on to the Swedish side of the beer then, to Poppels Bryggeri then. So as I mentioned to you earlier, Poppels Bryggeri were originally based in a town called Mölnlycke, which is to the southeast of Gothenburg, but they're now based in Jonserad, which I believe is a little bit further to the north of that. But the brewery is named after that, which was owned by Johan Poppel, who was a well-known German-Swedish brewer, and actually he spent most of his life in Varberg and in Göteborg as well. But he was born between 1605 and 1610 in Lower Saxony in Germany, and then moved to Sweden with his family during the 1620s. He met his wife Katarina Krakow sometime between 1624 and 1628, and then later founded Gothenburg's first brewery with her officially in 1649, although it's thought that they had been brewing together since since 1638. He's also said to have written down the protocol, or I guess the constitution you could say, of the city of Gothenburg in Swedish for the first time as opposed to German. But the brewery apparently remained in the Poppels family for a number of generations, and the most famous site of the brewery in Gothenburg was actually Stigbergstorget in the city. But the current brewery was founded in 2012 in Mölnlycke on a site that was apparently owned by the Poppel family, and the brewery is owned by 15 beer lovers, and it aims to focus on basically pairing beer with different types of food. But the current head brewer is Daniel Granat, who apparently is a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to his beer. He's a huge experimenter, and he brews a lot of his beers 4 to 5 times before he actually releases them. But apparently he also reads many beer blogs and things like that, and likes to keep up to date with all the new beers that are being released, as well as kind of brewing techniques and brewing events and stuff like that as well. He's supposed to be like one of these people that is really, really switched on when it comes to his trade. But in 2015 they moved to a new site in Jonserad, which, as I say, is out to the east of Gothenburg, and there they've got a restaurant and a shop as well, and they now also boast the title of being Sweden's largest organic brewery, which I think is pretty cool actually. Of course, there's a big concern at the moment about chemicals messing with people's bodies and things like that, especially, and you know, people messing with food and things like that. I do think in some way it is better to be as natural as you can when it comes to food. So in that way, kudos to Poppels Bryggeri. They've been getting a little bit more adventurous with their Project series as well. If ever you see some of the beers from the Project series from Poppels Bryggeri, those in particular, I really do recommend that you check out. They've got a lovely Russian Imperial Stout as well. One of their double IPAs, I think, is also really nice from memory too, and they've got a Belgian wit that I really want to try as well. A lot of people have been telling me that I need to try that. But if you want to read a little bit more about Poppels Bryggeri, you can, as I said before, you can follow them on Facebook, you can follow them on Instagram, and you can check out the brewery website in the description below. But that's enough about the breweries just now. Let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer itself. So I'll just go down a little bit, because I did take a little bit of a note on this one for two reasons. You'll see this. If you look at the front of the bottle here, it says here it's an Imperial Stout brewed with coffee, vanilla, cocoa nibs, hazelnuts, and then also arak and badere have been added to the beer, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So arak essentially is a sort of, it's this kind of spirit it's a little bit over 35%, somewhere between 35 and 45%. If I remember correctly, and it's quite popular in Sweden to use that to prepare pastries and to drink it with when you eat pastries and ice cream and chocolates and things like that. And badere is quite an interesting thing, because that's a special type of biscuit, sort of cookie type thing. In Sweden they call it kex. It's a special type that is produced only twice a year in Gothenburg, and it's available only at the Bräckboden shop, which is outside of the Göteborg kex factory. So it's a particular type of Gothenburg biscuit that they've put it in this one. So I guess it really is a Swedish Fika Imperial Stout, this one. I think that's really cool actually. Swedish Fika, if you don't know, the Swedes watching this will of course know that, but Fika, if you like, is the sort of morning coffee, if you like. It's basically, if you know, for example, if you date a Swedish girl or something, one of the first things that you would do is go for a fika together, and basically you get a sort of coffee or something like that, and a cake or a biscuit or something like that. So, you know, Swedish Fika is their big sort of morning social sort of thing. Usually in work we stop at like 10 o'clock and have a little bit of a coffee, and I guess that is your Swedish Fika, if you like. But yeah, so the little bit on the side of the bottle of this one, it says this Russian Imperial Stout is a tribute to one of the most fantastic Swedish chocolate bars around, the Badere. This bar has a long and fantastic history that is now reaching what seems to be the end. Manufactured in an old machine that cannot make bars that meet the standards of today, it's only baked twice a year and sold at the factory outlet, and this factory is now closing down. Thanks to this tribute, Evil Twin and Poppels is now preserving the fantastic taste of Badere for many years to come. Produced and bottled for Evil Twin Brewing by Poppels Bryggeri in Sweden. So yeah, really nicely presented, this one actually, and I think that's pretty cool actually. I guess that makes it a little bit more special that I was able to review this one for you here on the channel. And I do like the fact that the bottle kind of has the yellow and blue Swedish colours on it as well. I do think that is pretty cool. I noticed this as well with this one. This actually has the same bottle cap on it as All In Brewery, which are one of the gypsy breweries that are always moving around in Sweden. I think they have been brewing a number of their beers up at Poppels Bryggeri. I just thought that was a little bit funny that it had the All In Brewing bottle cap on it, this one, rather than the Poppels one or something saying Evil Twin. You know, I thought that was quite unusual about this beer. But then again, if Evil Twin Brewing are the home brewery in this case, whether they would put a Poppels bottle cap on it, then I'm not quite sure about that. Just one of the little funny things that I found with this one. So without further ado, let's get this beer out and we'll get on with the tasting then. I'm really looking forward to this. As I said, this guy is a 12% Imperial Stout. They've added coffee, vanilla, cocoa nibs, hazelnuts, Swedish biscuits, and a little bit of arak to this one, which, as I was telling you, is a sort of molasses rice type spirit actually. But yeah, as you can see with this one, and as you would expect I guess too, this one's poured a nice dark ebony rosewood colour. It looks really nice actually. Pretty much as you would expect from an Imperial Stout. The head on this one I think is quite an unusual colour. It's almost got a bit of a reddish tint to it, to be honest. If you look at that, it's got a really interesting almost reddish tan colour to it. Dark ebony rosewood colour, one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones heading up towards the bottom of that head there, but you know, overall it does look pretty nice actually, and as I say, pretty much what you would expect from an Imperial Stout. So yeah, let's take a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we get on with this one. You can smell some of these big dark chocolatey notes and also some of the brown sugars coming out of the beer as well. So let's take a closer look at that then before we taste the beer. Oh yeah, as soon as you go into the nose in this one, it's coffee all the way. It's quite a smooth, earthy coffee I think that's coming out of this one, but it's got a little bit of an aromaticity to it as well. As I've always said in these videos, when it comes to coffee stouts and things like that, it's a style of beer that I really do quite enjoy, but I was never ever a big coffee drinker. You know, I can always tell you if it's a rubbish coffee or if it's a really kind of high quality one from the aroma. And in this one case, it does smell as if it's quite high quality, to be honest with you. But the coffee overall I think is quite an earthy one, but at the same time it's got a bit of smoothness to it and a little bit of a kind of aromaticity. But underneath that you can definitely get a lot of chocolate out of this beer. The cocoa nibs are really coming out quite nicely. It's a dark, high cocoa chocolate that's in this one. But at the same time the vanilla is given the impression of a really milky chocolate at the same time too, which is interesting. You really can pick the vanilla out of the aroma of this beer as well. But there's definitely some sort of biscuity notes you can pick up. I've never tried this type of biscuit, the Bryggeri that's in this one. I've never tried it before, so I'll need to make sure I do that when I go to Gothenburg next time to see if I can actually get some. But you can smell that there is some sort of biscuity element to this beer. There's maybe a little bit of a slightly woody note to this one, and you can pick out the hazelnuts too. There's definitely a kind of nice sweet nutty note. That's almost mixing as well with the vanilla element that I was talking about coming out of this beer. Overall though, I'd say it's the coffee that dominates the aroma, and like I say, it's got a nice earthy presence to it. You get a little bit of earthiness from the hops in this beer as well, but yeah, you definitely get a little bit of earthiness from the hops in this one, but there's also a nice little bit of a fruity quality to the beer as well. It's got a sort of almost plummy note to it. It's definitely got a little touch of a kind of sharp red fruity ester as well. So as I always say, just take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I can say straight away from the aroma of this one, I think it's going to be a cracker. There's a lot of lovely chocolate and things coming out of this one. So without further ado, let's get stuck into this one then. So this is the Swedish Fika, the Swedish Fika Biscotti Break from Poppels Bryggeri in Jonserad in Sweden, an Evil Twin Brewing company who are a sort of American-Danish creation these days, with a special biscuit, Bryggeri, which is produced only in Gothenburg in a certain factory, the Göteborg factory, twice a year, and also with some arak, which is a lovely Swedish spirit. So let's get stuck into this one and see how we get on. Slange, skål. Yeah, that's a beautiful, beautiful beer. You need to try this one for yourself. It really is, you know, really quite nice. It's different from anything that I've actually had before. If I really had to push this into a style, it's definitely a coffee stout. You know, it's a coffee stout, this one. I guess a coffee Russian Imperial Stout. That's probably what the best descriptor that you're going to get stylistically for this beer. But the malt base in this one is really lovely and smooth. There's a hell of a lot going on in this one. And I'm finding that the coffee, it starts off really sweet, and then the coffee just kind of rolls in on your palate. Your palate almost dries out a little bit and then starts to lean more and more towards the coffee side of things. It really is very nice how everything kind of goes together in this one. So let's try and piece together what's going on in the malt base of this one. You can really feel there is a roasted black malt backbone to this beer. You can feel a little bit of that kind of roasty character just pushing its way out of the malt base in this one. Yeah, on top of that you start to get the chocolate. Like I was saying, it's quite a high cocoa chocolate that's in this one, but you've also got the vanilla mixing in with that and giving the impression of a slightly more milky chocolatey quality as well. The biscuity flavours, which I'm guessing is the Baddered, you can sort of feel that there's a little bit of a kind of biscuity sweetness sitting in the middle of the palate of this one, and it's quite unique. I mean, it's almost like a kind of wafery, almost like a kind of caramel wafery sort of thing that's coming out of this one, which is really interesting. It's got a little bit of that kind of cookie sweetness to it, which is really interesting. Yeah, it almost reminds me a little bit of Kit Kats, if that makes sense. Like, you know, the McVitie, I don't know if Kit Kat's a McVitie's biscuit, but it really does remind me a little bit of Kit Kats, this beer actually. It's a really quite unique flavour. It's almost Kit Katty, but it's almost got a little bit of a slightly salty-ish flavour to it as well. But right in the middle of the palate, that's where these Baddery biscuits are coming out. There's a good bit of brown sugar in this one as well, and you start to notice it more and more as you go further into the aftertaste. It's almost like a little ring is forming in the middle of your palate, and it's quite a dark, almost treacly brown sugar, I guess. And I like the way that that's coming out. When you go further and further into the aftertaste, like I say, the coffee smoothness of this beer starts to push its way out a little bit more. That brown sugary note and the biscuity flavours are just lingering there as well, which is really nice. Yeah. There is a little bit, you can tell a little bit that there's a spirit being added to this one, just with the way some of the boozy quality comes out in this beer. But it really works for it. The flavours all go together really quite well, and you can feel that there's a little bit of this almost herbally sort of spirit thing just lingering into the aftertaste. I don't know if that'll be the kind of ricey elements that you'll get from the arrack that's been added to this one, but it's a really interesting beer, this. I don't think you're going to come across many imperial stouts like this one. I mean, have a go at it for yourself, seriously. There's a lot going on in this malt base, towards the front of the palate as well, just behind where you'd normally get that little bubble with the fruity esters. You can pick out a little bit of the kind of nutty flavour to this one as well, and I think as you go further into the aftertaste as well, it's getting a little bit more woody. There's as I say, there's a hell of a lot going on in the flavour of this beer, so just savour this one and enjoy it. It's really nice. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, in the back corners of the palate you've got a lovely smooth earthiness. It's a little bit more bitter in the back corners of the palate, but as you come further forward along the sides of the tongue, it does just smooth out a little bit. And that builds a good bridge between the sort of coffee elements and the roasted black elements of the malt base and the hoppy side of things. But it smooths out as you come further forwards to the front corners of your palate, then round the very front curve of the tongue, it's just a little bit lighter and just very, very slightly grassy. And then behind the front curve of the palate, that's where you get that nice little oily bubble where some of the juicy fruity esters start to come out of the beer. And for me, on the fruity side of things, it's definitely got a little bit of plum sharpness to it, but it's more like a kind of prune note. The feel of this beer is very much like like an alcoholic cake or something like that. An alcoholic chocolate coffee cake. It has a very kind of cakey feel to it, this beer. You know, you would have a great time with this beer if you had one of these lovely Swedish Kladkukas or something like that. It really would go very well with that, I think, this one. And you know, a nice dark coffee. As I say, I'm not a big coffee drinker, but when it comes to beers where they add coffee just to enhance the flavour, I really can appreciate that. And in this beer in particular, you know, it is really, really quite nice. One of the best coffee stout beers I had was actually from Swedish Brewery, and there is another Swedish beer called Key, which you'll see me review in a few videos time, which I'm quite excited about. When it comes to these coffee stouts though, it is absolutely lovely, and this one in particular makes me very curious about the other beers in this kind of Biscotti Break range, because there's a hell of a lot kind of going on in this one. It takes a little bit to describe actually everything that's going on in this beer. All I can say is have a go at it for yourself and see what you think, but this is an absolutely lovely imperial stout. If you enjoy a coffee stout, there's no doubt in my mind that you will enjoy this one. In particular, if you like these Battery biscuits from Gothenburg, you'll enjoy this too. I really need to see if I can get a hold of some of those and taste it for myself. If I'd known this was the significance of the beer beforehand, I would have tried to see if I could get some, but I guess it would be very, very difficult. In terms of the mouthfeel then of this beer, definitely a full-bodied beer, I don't think there's any doubt about that. Yeah, full-bodied beer, this one. Lovely smooth carbonation. The mouthfeel overall is quite oily. Don't think there's any doubt about that with this one. In terms of hoppiness, this beer's by no means going to blow your head off in terms of IBUs. I'd guess that it's somewhere around the 50, maybe at a push 60 IBU mark. A little bit of the bitterness comes from the malt base as well, the coffee elements to the beer. But it's got a nice earthy hoppiness, this one, which, as I say, brings out some of the coffee flavours. Nice bit of sweetness from the malt base, and also a bit of juicy, fruity character in the beer as well. But overall, a really, really cracking beer, and I'm glad that I was able to review this one for you. So let's leave it at that. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Poppels Bryggeri and from Evil Twin. I'm really glad that I was able to review this one for you, because it is quite a special beer, this, I think. I'm really starting to get into these coffee stouts, so do in particular give me some more coffee stout recommendations, and I will see if I can review more of these Biscotti Break beers from Evil Twin as well. But really glad that I got to review this one. Hopefully it's not the last I see of it, and all I can say is, if you enjoy a good coffee stout, I think you will really enjoy this one. And as I say, it's a uniquely Swedish beer, this, so I'd be very interested to see how far and wide you can actually pick up this beer. So if you do watch this review, do let me know where you're drinking this beer as well. I'd love to see how far away this one actually reaches. But once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. This one was the Swedish Fika Biscotti Break, a collaboration beer between Evil Twin Brewing, who are kind of Danish-American these days, and Poppels Bryggeri from Jonserad, just outside of Gothenburg. Thanks again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. Skål!